Welcome to Because the Beatles, the podcast about the Beatles, everything about the Beatles, 24/8. I'm Allison.
And I'm Erica. And before we start, be sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, or stream us on Spotify. And if you're enjoying BC the Beatles, feel free to leave us a preferably 5-star review so other Beatlemaniacs can find us.
Yes, and also don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll be posting videos, photos, and more from this episode and beyond. You can always also email us at bcthebeatles@gmail.com. Yes, you can.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your final word.
Well, I guess we should start out the episode by explaining what the hell is going on. So currently, y'all, I am sat at LAX waiting to board a plane. So this is a little like, because the Beatles on location.
Yeah, we're going global, dude.
It's all happening. We were bi-coastal. We've always been bi-coastal. And now we're global.
World domination.
Exactly. So I'm sitting here waiting to board a plane to Italy. Very exciting.
Oh my God, Christmas in Italy.
I know. I'm so excited. I've never been. I'm like I'm looking forward to it. I just want to eat all the pasta and gelato.
You will.
So I'm catching a flight first to London, and it kills me a little bit that I'm not going to be able to get off and do some stuff in London. But whatever. I'll blow London a kiss, and then I'll be off.
You'll see London next time.
I know. Well, I mean, no spoilers, but, we're planning some pretty exciting stuff for 2020, Erica.
We sure are.
Yes, and we'll have more details for all of you guys in the new year very soon.
We're going to do a little bit of a holiday episode and then come back with a whole bunch of awesome stuff.
Hell yeah. I'm so stoked for this. But yeah, it is the holidays. You ready for the ever-present gift giving?
Oh my God. I've done so much shopping at one particular store that I'll get to in a minute.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm hoping there's a little something in there for some of your friends. I don't know if you saw this. So Abbey Road, the studio, released their holiday collection, and the jewelry, oh my God, I'm in love with it. They've got all kinds of stuff. They got scarves. They got all kinds of Beatles themed stuff. A lot of it is super unique to Abbey Road, and they've collabed with designers. And there's a really great record player necklace. Oh, I want it so bad.
Yeah, I want a few things here too. This is amazing.
I love it. But more importantly, Erica, and very timely, I need to know about the thing that you went to that's shopping related. Please tell me everything.
Sony and Apple and the Beatles came up with a pop-up shop this year in New York City in Soho. So they teamed up with a Thread Shop, which is a subsidiary of Sony that develops artist-themed stores and merch. I know they have a Bob Dylan shop. They have a lot of things. And they developed some new Beatles products, specifically, they say, for the North American audience. So there's a bunch of new stuff, including toys, turntables, an $8,000 pinball machine that kind of...
Oh, wow. So budget.
Yeah.
Really budget.
It actually does go for everybody's budget. There are some little things like pendants and charms, but then there's a pinball machine.
That's amazing. I want to know though what makes this specific to the North American market.
I'm not sure. Most of the things I haven't seen before, but they are billing it as a North American store, so I don't know. But anybody who's out there, if you're not American, let us know if you get this stuff. Right now, I'm seeing it at usamerch.thebeatles.com.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's not so much. See, I took it as stuff that they think Americans would like, not so much stuff that's only available in America. So that's why I was very confused.
Yeah, it's a Beatles themed Big Mac. It's stuff only Americans.
Yes, exactly.
Cowboy boots.
Exactly. Oh my God, yeah. Speaking of, I don't know who want to cut this out, but speaking of Big Macs, this is a very historical night that we're recording this.
It is?
On.
Wow.
It is. Trump was impeached tonight.
Oh, speaking of Big Macs.
Speaking of Big Macs.
Happy impeachment.
Legit, that reminded me. Anyway, back to Beatles merch.
That's
but I was
hilarious. I'm leaving it in. Happy impeachment.
Okay, good. Happy impeachment, y'all. Anyway, back to Beatles merch, though.
So anyway, Beatles merch. The fun part about this is not only the merch, but they made it into a store, which is very much like an Instagrammable type of experience, like kind of any pop-up shop or event marketing type thing is. So, you walk in and They're little alcoves that are decorated for different eras of the Beatles. So there's a Sgt. Pepper area and a Yellow Submarine. There's a Ringo-style drum kit seated around a replica of the Ed Sullivan set, like with the little arrows. And it's a real drum kit. You can actually sit on it and play it. A lot of great photo ops. Walls were decorated with all kinds of vintage postcards and posters and everything. And there's some really cool new pieces like Beatles cookie cutters. Perfect for the holidays, and I'm super excited about them.
I need to know what these cookie cutters are, though. Like, what shapes are they?
Abbey Road shapes. Beatles at Abbey Road shapes.
Oh, so the actual Beatles crossing Abbey Road.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
They're so cute. They didn't sell it, but there was an opportunity to get a custom gift wrap, and the gift wrap was a collage of early Beatles tickets and super early black and white ads.
So they didn't sell that?
For $5, you could get your stuffed gift wrap, but you couldn't buy a roll.
Oh, I see. But that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And there was a tote bag that was the cover of the pantomime Christmas album. So there was a couple.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, there was some really nice, deep cut sort of things. Beatles music obviously plays throughout the store. You can play the pinball machine. That's really cool. And a special surprise for me was that there's a short documentary that plays on a loop, and it features a friend of the pod and Beatles YouTuber, Christine Summer, talking about her fabulous Beatles collection.
Oh my God.
And it's so cute.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and she's there with her boyfriend and her little dog, who I think is named Lennon. So very cute.
Oh, that's adorable.
And it's just her showing her absolutely astounding Beatles collection and talking about the impact of the Beatles on the next generation, who are really the kind of people who would probably be visiting a New York City pop-up shop. So it's a really nice tie-in to next gen, second gen, third gen, fourth gen Beatles fans.
That's so exciting. Congrats, Christine. I know she's been really excited. She's been posting about it on her Instagram and stuff. And it's so exciting to see her, being approached by this. Endeavor. And she's so cool. She's such an enthusiastic fan. She's so emblematic of that next gen enthusiasm. That's really exciting that they're embracing that.
It was awesome. It was kind of her boyfriend was there, talking about the impact of this huge collection on him. And it was pretty funny.
It's yeah, I gotta live with this. Whatever. You should be so lucky, buddy.
Yeah. So it's probably not going to be there much longer. The shop is only running through December 22nd, but if you can't make it, do not worry. As I mentioned before, all of the new merch is online and for sale at usamerch.thebeatles.com. So check it out. Get yourself a late Christmas present, early 2020 Happy New Year gift.
Yeah, dude, treat yourself. Well, I'm so glad you got to go. I'm so jealous that wasn't here in LA, but I'm super, super stoked. We'll have to post some photos. Did you take photos?
I took photos. I took videos. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We will post that shit everywhere because that's awesome. It makes me think of the Beatles stuff I got, when I was a kid, or for me, I had a lot of Beatles memories around the holiday time, just getting the CDs. I remember getting Paul McCartney's Wingspan book one year, and I was so excited.
Well, the biggest thing of the holidays a long time ago was the anthology that came out right around Thanksgiving.
You're talking about the book, right?
When they first aired on TV, they happened around the Christmas break.
Okay.
And then Thanksgiving. And then after that, all that stuff came out. So I always think of the anthology and I think of the holiday times, because at that time, it was an event. I remember sitting down with my dad and watching it during Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I know a lot of people talk about that. I was a little behind, not so much in age, but in my Beatles fandom. And oh my God, in February, it's going to be 20 years of my Beatles fandom.
Holy shit.
I'm so excited.
Holy shit.
That's insane. Yay. No, yeah. I feel like I remember the book coming out when it was cold, though.
Yeah, that might have come out a little bit later.
Maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. It didn't come out at the same time. I know that for a fact. Whenever I got Beatles stuff, I was always really impressed because my mom was not a Beatles fan. So whenever she did good, it got me, and did well and got me stuff, I was super impressed and won her kudos. Oh my God, I remember one year for Christmas she got me, do you remember the cover of Driving Rain? And
yeah,
Paul,
hell
and
yeah.
that GD watch that he had that took photos.
That was the height of year 2000 technology.
Oh hell yeah. Well, I begged my mom for that and she got it for me for Christmas one year. It was my big Christmas gift.
Oh my God.
I know. And I wore that thing forever. And I felt like such a baller. And yeah, I would take pictures with it all the time. And I felt like Paul. And, that was still like one of my most special Christmas gifts, I think. I love that.
I'm so jealous of 20 years ago you.
I know, right? I'm jealous of me too back then. Did you ever get a big Beatles gift for Christmas?
I remember being like super little and getting the first time they came out on CD. Because I was a weird kid, and that's all I wanted was like a bunch of Beatles CDs. So I remember getting and they came, remember CDs when they first came out? They came in those like big cardboard things.
Yeah, we talk about those all the time at work. Yeah, I think they're called long boxes.
It's like to make them the same size as a record, right? Because that's how they were stacking them.
Yeah, I don't know what the point was. It seems a little excessive. Maybe it was to make them the same height as the record.
There was a lot of cardboard going on that Christmas.
So freaking wasteful, y'all.
No. Well, speaking of amazing merchandise and Beatles memories, today's feature is really fun. We filmed it a while back when we went to the amazing Beatles at the Ridge Festival last fall. The whole festival's theme was Beatles merchandise and memorabilia. And we did a live podcast on the subject of collecting memorabilia from a next-gen fan perspective.
But our guest was Terry Crain, who is a dear friend of the podcast now. And he and his wife, Linda, were our drivers back and forth to the Ridge. So thank you guys.
Oh, we had so much fun.
We had so much fun with them. And Terry, if you're not familiar with his work, he's a collector and he's also the author of a book that just came out called NEMS and the Business of Selling Beatles Merchandise in the U.S. 1964 to 1966, which is basically about all the officially licensed Beatles merchandise and items during that time in the U.S. It takes readers on a tour of the 150 officially licensed Beatles items that came out in the early days of Beatlemania, which is awesome.
A lot of these things, we never have seen them before. At least
some of them are freaking wild, and we'll talk about some of those, but my God.
Yeah. This is a great last minute Christmas gift for the Beatles friend in your life. And even if you don't get the book, follow Terry on Instagram, follow him on Facebook.
Oh yeah,
him on Twitter.
He posts things. I love the way he posts, because he posts a photo of the item, and then he's like, "You could have worn me in 1964 to bake cookies. I'm a Beatles apron." Like,
it's so good.
That so much.
It's so good. So we had a delightful conversation with Terry. The show ended with some live audience stories about the audiences and their own collections and their own memorabilia and the nature of collections and the nature of memorabilia. So in the spirit of the holidays and of gift giving, we're releasing the show for any of you who may need a few last-minute gift ideas.
Yeah, have fun. And have fun trolling eBay looking for these.
Hell yeah.
And enjoy our chat with Terry.
So we have a very special guest, surprise guest for some of you, and we'd like to welcome him here to talk about second gen and third gen Beatles memorabilia. Please welcome Terry Crain. Hi, Terry.
Hi. How's everybody?
Good. How are you?
I'm so fortunate to be sitting here between these two lovely ladies.
It's
today.
true.
We're fortunate to have you. So a little bit about Terry. Terry is a Beatles historian with a special focus on memorabilia and merchandise. His new book, which you can take a look at and purchase back there, is called NEMS and the Business of Selling Beatles Merchandise in the U.S. 1964 to 1966, which is about the officially licensed Beatles items selling in the U.S. during that time. So you'll see Terry again just after us when he gives his keynote as the Ridge's final symposium speaker. But right now, he's joining us to chat about the experience of collecting memorabilia as a next-gen fan, which we define as somebody who was not born yet to experience the Beatles in real time.
Which is us, if you can't tell.
Yeah.
We were not there.
Unfortunately. First of all, just a little bit about your interest in memorabilia in general.
I've always been interested in it, the different items and everything, especially that first wave of the Beatle items in 64 and 66. Yes, I was around. Yes, I was 8 years old, so I didn't collect too much of it when I was 8. I had older brothers and sisters who had it, all the dolls and stuff, and all the posters all over the wall. So that's how I kind of got ingrained in it. The last few years, I've really got into a lot more. I started researching a lot of it, and especially when I retired about a year and a half ago, I really got into it because I had the time to really dive into it.
Since you're a first generation fan, how much of the memorabilia did you have as a kid growing up?
Not too much at that time. I remember very clearly my sister had the George Remco doll, which a lot of people had. My brother had bought that for her for Christmas, and she was in shock that he actually bought her something for Christmas. That's what it was. And I could see that every day when I'd walk down the hall. I could see it in her room. It always stared at me as I walked down the hall. And went
Creepy.
Yes, it was a good creepy. And then, that's really my earliest recollection of some kind of item that was associated with this band that was sweeping the world.
So what do you think there would be a difference in what it would be to be a collector as a latter generation fan versus being first generation?
Well, I think now, it's interesting now, I think, about the collecting world. It's changed from what I have noticed over the years, where I could go to conventions and there would be tables and tables full of memorabilia and all that, and you looked at it and you decided what you want to go. When you go now to some of these same big conventions and all that, instead of a place that used to have maybe 20 tables full of this stuff, you may have a place that has 4 or 5 tables full of it. And the people who are running these tables are the older generation, and you get the sense that when they start dying out or whatever it is, I don't know if there's anybody behind them coming up to sell at the tables and all. But then on the other hand, you've got the eBays and you got all that, to where all the generations now, no matter if it's my age or you guys' age or whoever it is, you can go out now and get started in this kind of thing by using that platform.
For me, I became a Beatles fan around 2000 when I was a kid. And I was actually a little bit older. I was a young teen when I became a Beatles fan. And so that was right around the rise of eBay. So that was really kind of how I didn't really get to inherit anything from my parents, my grandparents. My mother hated the Beatles. She tolerated my love for the Beatles. And she was like in her 20s during the 60s. So I was very bitter about that she didn't go see the Beatles or anybody. So I sort of set out on my own when I heard about eBay. I initially started buying Monkey stuff because I was a big Monkeys fan. And so I'd buy, I know, blasphemy. We learned yesterday that you can't be both, and that was my attitude for a long time. I just thought you couldn't be both, so I hated the Beatles viciously until I didn't anymore. But so I remember buying, official Monkeys fan club pins and all that, just piecemeal. There was really nothing much. And then my first Beatles item I think I bought on eBay, I don't know if it was legit or not, but it was, I think, a poster printed in the 80s, not flimsy sort of photo paper like you get now, posters that you buy at Target or whatever. It was heavy cardstocky paper, and it wasn't very practical. It wasn't very pretty. It was sort of black and white and not amazing, but it was pretty much all you could find around maybe 1999, 2000, 2001 on eBay for Beatles stuff. So that was all I had.
I started a little bit earlier. I think my first real obsession was during the Paul McCartney 1989-1990 World Tour, which was amazing. And I was a really little kid, but I feel like, at least for me, the only way to get real-time memorabilia was to follow things like the solo careers. And one thing I've noticed with second-gen fans a lot of times is that we kind of have an affinity for the solo gears in a way that almost rivals our affinity for the Beatles as a group. I did get some inheritance of Beatles merch. My dad was a huge Beatles fan, and I was very lucky that his dad, my grandfather, was the guitar player for the Ray Block Orchestra and the Ed Sullivan Show, and was there that day. So we have this lovely autograph signed by all 4 on the back of an old rehearsal call sheet from the day before. So, we have that little lore of our, of Beatles history in our family. But otherwise, it was really either just, hunting around the memorabilia shops when you could find something like that, or getting into whatever the real-time thing was, whether it was Paul McCartney or it was the Beatles anthology, which was a huge point in our memorabilia careers and our lives because so much rose out. And Terry, I kind of want to ask you about that time. Was there a renaissance of Beatles or officially sanctioned Beatles items about that time?
Yeah, well, yes, there was some renaissance of, over the segments, there was a renaissance of the official stuff. It's just interesting how you have all these different segments that seem to come up. And you can probably plot them on a graph somewhere where you've got the 64 to 66. And to me, there's almost like a defining line drawn right there to the first stuff that came out. And then right after that, you got all the Yellow Submarine stuff in the 60s, 67, 68, all that kind of stuff. And then all along in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and that whenever there's some kind of segment that you can get interested in and get sucked into if you need to, and even the solo stuff, so it makes it so neat that, whether you try to do it all, you get very confused about what you're doing and all that. But a lot of people they start, well, I'm going to worry about this genre or this genre there. But it's neat that even the kids this day and age, they can pick their own because they got all these different things that they can choose to and start getting involved in.
Yeah, it's true. And, you mentioned the anthology, Erica. I remember distinctly, I think the first piece of Beatles merch that I bought in the store was at Best Buy, in Northeast Ohio where I grew up, and I went to buy the anthology book, but I went there because it came with a t-shirt, and I really wanted that t-shirt. And it wore out like within 3 washes, but I really wanted that. And, it got me thinking, like, that was, probably my first piece of Apple sanctioned merch. Like, that was official. I'm sure following that I got so much, non-official merch, but I feel like for, maybe second-gen fans, it doesn't matter so much. Like, for me, it's like, I love Apple stuff. I think it's cool, but I also think, like, creative stuff fans make themselves, or, like, even if I find something on eBay that I like, it might not be official or have, the provenance, that we talked about last night with Jim Birkenstadt. But does that matter to me? If it's signed, it does. But if it's not, I don't know. Do you think that's like a hallmark of a second or third or latter gen fan? Do you think first gen fans care more about that, Terry?
First gen fans they'll tolerate the rest of this stuff.
They don't embrace it.
But they do embrace it. But if you're a first gen fan and you were actually collecting it, and I think a lot of times that's the stuff they like. But even now, Mattel's coming out with the new little cars and the new little trucks and everything that I've got, and it's just neat that that's a whole different genre, and now your grandkids can start playing with them, or you put them away on a shelf or something like that. But even that gets them involved now in this entire industry.
Another thing I've noticed is the melding of the Beatles fandom into the sort of Comic-Con type vibe. So when I go to these conventions and I see these merch tables, you see now the pop figures that are a lot of, the Marvel universe, but they've also got the Beatles, where you see original cells from Yellow Submarine selling right next to, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and things like that.
I just think that the draw and the appeal of the entire package, the music, I think the Beatles are one of these bands that, especially in the 60s, with we're talking about it 55 years later, there's so much other things around them that you can get interested in that maybe the Dave Clark Five didn't have, or Herman's Hermits didn't have, or some of the other bands. There's just so much history and interesting history around it that, the music is one thing in itself, but there's so much else that goes on around that allows you to get interested in it.
I know that the Beatles have like Titan figurines, which, if you don't know, they're like little stout beetle things. When I was a kid too, Spencer's Gifts. Hey, shout out for Spencer's. Terrible store, but they had the Yellow Submarine figurines that were like this tall, and they had movable arms. They were, they came with like a sea of holes or something. But it just makes you think, like, going back to the Rumco doll. It's like all of these sort of pieces recycle sometimes for latter generations. And, I remember buying used bedding, and I remember, having all this stuff available to me that a lot of first-gen fans have, but it was in a different iteration.
And you can go into the Barnes & Noble, and next to the Funko dolls, next to all the Game of Thrones and everything, they got the Beatles sitting right there, and they're probably just as good sellers as a lot of them at different times.
Yeah, for sure. Now, yesterday you did a great presentation on the way people were licensing things and not licensing things and suing each other for not licensing things correctly, and it was fascinating. And I'm wondering now, with how much more control does Apple exert over the merchandise that's sold commercially?
I think Apple has pretty good control right now. I mean, anytime Apple can write a letter to the Fest for Beatle fans that used to be called Beatle Fest and say, you need to change your name, and they go, okay. And I know of other places lately that Apple has sent those letters to, and when you read that letter, it says you need to do this because, and it's signed by Apple, you're going to do it. So I think their control is pretty good now. So a lot of these things you see now, I feel pretty comfortable when I get my Mattel trucks out that, well, these are Apple sanctioned, so they're going to be pretty good quality stuff.
Yeah. Have you known them to send C&Ds to I was just talking about some creators on Etsy or Redbubble? Because I don't see a lot of Beatles stuff on Etsy. It's handmade.
They're probably on the borderline of let's see how much we can do before we get that letter.
Okay, that makes sense. I want to ask both of you guys, I'm just curious, besides your Beatles autographs, Erica, because we're all very jealous, what are your two most favorite pieces of Beatles memorabilia that you guys own?
The first one is the program that I got at the Paul McCartney 1990 World Tour. It's the big one, and he's got his amazing mullet and his Hofner, and it's all bright and colored in the 80s, and it's got a cutout.
Does it have a patterned vest on?
Yes, it does. And it's amazing, and it's still in a drawer in my parents' room, or my parents' house in my old bedroom, and I look at it every single time I ever come home. I just love it. My other favorite thing, and again, this is Paul McCartney. I got a real thing about Paul McCartney solo, and you got it for me.
I did.
You got it for me. Was the publicity poster for Bruce McMouse from last January, and because it is a piece of from now, it's a new thing that references something that I wasn't there for. But by being able to be part of the release, seeing it in the theater, it feels like there's a connection to the event that I think that I don't have for some of the other memorabilia maybe that I buy. I don't know if it's more, I don't know if this is just an individual preference, but I feel like the memorabilia that I like is strongly connected with some kind of memory of a physical event or experience based around the Beatles.
I'll answer it two ways. My favorite thing that I've got is the Beatles Soaky Doll right now. I just love the idea that it used to be full of bubble bath, and you can take your bath with the Beatle. It's pretty cool. I also had Bullwinkle back then. I had Bullwinkle and Rocky and all that stuff. So now I got Ringo right in there that I could do it also. The other way I'll answer this, if it's all right, of the first gen items, which is about 150 items. I've thought people will ask me, "What's your favorite first gen item?" This answer is not a cop-out or anything, but actually I like them all. Because to me, they're all some item. And now I know the record player is worth a bunch of money, and the handkerchief might not be worth a bunch of money. But to me, they're both the NIMS items that were licensed, that somebody designed. They took the time to do it. It falls into this genre of there's only 150 items, and it's one of those. So setting the cost of it aside, one is just as important and just as a favorite as another one to me.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's funny because you're both saying things where it is like a piece of a collectible that you have the Beatles. Doesn't matter what it is. It's like Bruce McMouse poster that I got for free, or if it's this very valuable Beatle bubble bath container. It's just something that's tied to a certain memory or a certain place, and I guess there are collectors who collect for the sake of collecting, and that's fine. Collecting valuable pieces, but I think it's also maybe, I know for us, it's this is something that connects us to the Beatles in a way that we couldn't be because we weren't around then, too.
Do you have a favorite?
Do you have a favorite?
Of yours? I think you do, and I think we're going to hear about it.
I think you're going to hear about it anyway. Well, you probably know from many of these fine people that have called me up exactly what you said. My favorite Beatle is Brian Epstein, and anybody shocked? No. I have a very, very good friend named Andrew, shout out, who lovingly got me Brian's autograph at the WFMU Record Fair in New York. Brought it back for me, biggest surprise of my life, lots of tears. So I think that would be it. But also, I've got to say, since I've got me from eBay, I've got Flaming Pies with Burt Paul album. I love that album so much. It means so much to me. And I bought a couple of the promotional posters, and I have those. And they accidentally sent me 2 instead of 1. But it doesn't matter what it's worth. Seeing the Flaming Pie poster, it takes me back to the summer of 2001 when it's an album every day. It's more than that.
And Terry, I want to ask, is there a most surprising or strangest piece of Beatle memorabilia that you've come across in your time?
There's 3 or 4 that are just weird.
Oh, let's hear
Okay.
it. Let's hear it.
There's one called the official licensed Beatle twig. And what the twig is, it's 2 pieces of, there's 2 sticks with 2 little plastic circles on the top, where you put them on the one stick, and with the other stick, you make the whole thing spin. And it has nothing to do with Beatles, but it says it flips over the Beatles. And that's how they market it, and it's one of the items. There is the official Beatles pom-pom that are about 3 inches wide. There are 2 black fuzzy balls or whatever, and it's got eyeballs on it. And you either threw them in the air and caught them, or you put them on your shirt and you wore them around. That's what you did with those. And then the Hummer was always a weird thing. It was a cardboard tube, about 11 inches long, and had the Beatles pictures up and down the cardboard tube. And yes, you put it in your mouth and you hummed the Beatles song. And the advertisement was hum along with the Beatles.
So it was like a toilet paper tube.
That's exactly what it looked like. Yes.
Wow.
Well, all of this sounds just like so much fun for a kid. Like we've got 2 kids in the front row. Doesn't that sound fun, guys? Like a Beatle twig, right? Yeah, we're gonna adapt to that. Yeah, exactly.
No.
I mean, what a thrilling adventure. A Beatle twig.
Well, and then you wonder sometimes, I always think when they first started making the items and they started granting the license, they were probably worried more about quality and all this stuff. But maybe after it went along a while, they said, yeah, just let them do that twig. Let them do that or whatever. So, I think the quality might have went down a little bit, but, who am I to say?
I wonder if nowadays, though, that it almost is a kind of a 180 from the twig and the tube.
I hope so.
Well, yeah. Twig and the tube, you heard it here first. In that when the Beatles pair with somebody, it's a big deal now. So if you think about the Beatles Crate and Barrel wall collection that was out last year, that was a collection of a lot of it was posters that I think most of us have probably seen and maybe have on our walls already, but the fact that they were licensed through Crate and Barrel and framed nicely, they made it into an event. Also the Beatles rock band, which I think that was about 10 years ago now, but that was a huge big deal. And that was, even though it's more of an event, it was still kind of an officially licensed Beatles product, but it was so big, and they make such a splash now when things come out. Is that a targeted marketing technique by Apple, do you think?
Probably.
No?
I mean, you're going to have quality stuff now. It's with the Beatles name attached to it, you're going to have, I think, top-of-the-line quality stuff, just like we were talking about the Beatle Mattel trucks and all that stuff. These aren't cheap little things that you're getting. You're getting quality items there that are going to hold up for a while.
I think also with brands like Crate and Barrel, that comes with a certain status. I think also Stella McCartney's clothing, the Beatles line, is also in that loop. But on the flip side, I think about Target. Target has officially sanctioned Beatles t-shirts. And I sort of wonder, does that cheapen the collecting experience where it's because I have t-shirts that I bought in Liverpool, on Matthew Street, that say the Cavern Club, and I love that. And when I wear them, other people know. I'm I got this in Liverpool. And then, I have friends that buy their t-shirts at Target, and it's what really makes a difference, And I'm not trying to be snobby about it, but it cheapens it a little bit. When I'm okay, you bought the same t-shirt, the same Beatles bag, and this happened. I bought it in Liverpool, the Beatles story, and I saw it at Target, and it really upset me. Anyway, does that cheapen the collecting experience when you can buy the stupid bag at Target?
I don't know if it cheapens it. You can look at it that it still gets their name out there in the public.
I'm sure Apple feels that way.
It gets their name in the public, and with this, they get more and more interest in, especially in the younger generation, because all this is back out there. So in Apple's eyes, this is the best thing that ever happened.
Do you have ideas for maybe our younger listeners who are second or third generation about buying first-gen merchandise?
Well, if you look at it, there are wonderful user guides out there that will take you through piece by piece that says, if I want to buy this official Beatles tie tack from 1964, there is legit ones and there's, quote, fake ones out there. many of these books will take you right through it and say, it's very easy to figure out. Look for this and look for this. And anywhere now, we talk about the internet and how much has a proliferation of all that stuff out there. I mean, you can go out there now, and if you're looking at that tie tack, you just start searching for what's fake and repo, and you can find immediately what's right and what's wrong. So if you get out there on eBay and start looking at things, it's just like Jim was talking about the other night, that if it's too cheap, you know why. But if it's too high, wow, they're trying to make some money. It's always somewhere in the middle, but you can take your time and research that, which even adds to the Beatle experience itself, is learning new things about this type of thing.
Yeah, that's true. One of the most fun things I think about collecting and looking at all of, the earlier items is that you get to, if you weren't there, you get to learn so much about it on the way. So it's such a wonderful experience, even if you don't end up buying it. Just the fact of finding out about these things, it opens so much up to, the things that you didn't see in your life.
Which has been such a wonderful experience here, because everybody's got cases and cases of stuff that I'd never seen before. The Beatles collecting experience knows no boundaries. I mean, the twig and tube, example A and B, there's just so much, and it's really kind of going down the rabbit hole with it.
For example, I think the first time I ever saw your social media, Terry, was when you were sharing the Wild Mile Beetle Bubble Bath commercial.
Right, which you'll see tonight.
Oh, good. And I'm not going to spoil it because it isn't the best commercial. It's everything.
And if you're not on Terry's social media, it's a hoot because he posts in the first person about all of these items. Where it's like, I was a Beatles robe, you could have worn me in 1964.
I was a Beatle too, you could have hugged it.
You could have humped into me in 1964. This is our podcast, guys. This is what we do. No, not at all.
I know.
How do we come back to that?
Just don't.
Do you think, moving on, do you think it's worthwhile for people to still go to flea markets and look for Beatles stuff? Or should you just troll eBay and never leave your house?
No, one of the things that, and I know eBay has helped and the internet's helped and all that stuff, but back in 64 and 65, you had to go out. You had to go to Woolworths or JCPenney's or Ben Franklin, and you had to pick this stuff up and turn it around in your hands and look at underneath and all this stuff and get a feel for it. Now on eBay, everything's just a picture. Yes, you can take it and blow it up and look carefully at each of this stuff and see what it is. But when you go out, even at the conventions or the flea markets or whatever, you can still pick up and look at that item to see exactly what it is that you're looking for.
Do you think that there is somewhere in some grandma's attic in, Indiana or, anywhere, that there's a Beatle item that has never been cataloged, never been seen? I know they're, not the Rumco doll, but the other doll, nobody had a picture of it. But do you think there's some random Beatles item that will maybe rear its ugly head at some point?
To me, there always has to be. I am constantly amazed how somebody finds something every week. Just found this item in my garage, and I'm thinking, how can you just find this?
Yeah.
But they do all the time, and most of the time they're legit. They find
Beatles recordings like
they
that.
do.
Picture. It's
Exactly.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a holy grail of item that you would like to see one day that you've heard about?
Yeah, the only thing I would like to see is the infamous skateboard, which I'll show you tonight. The skateboard is an interesting story. They made it. They took magazine ads out in trade magazines. They gave you model numbers. They had a nice public relations write-up all about it with photographs and all that. And I cannot find where one ever made a shelf yet. So something happened. I don't know if somebody tried it out and they broke an arm or whatever, or what it was, but they again got sued.
Yeah.
And I can't find anyone, any high-end collector, any collector that has actually had one in their collection yet. So there's a story there somewhere that I can't dig out.
But you've seen a photo of it?
Oh yeah, it was legit, right from the company and all that made it and everything. I mean, you don't go to that much trouble to put an ad like that in a trade magazine in 1964 if you don't have that item.
And if anybody listening has that skateboard, Terry Crain will pay you $40 plus shipping for the skateboard.
Correct.
Oh, that's helping so much. Well, I think that's all that we have for today, but I was wondering if anybody in the audience has any questions for us or for Terry about Beatles merch, or any stories they'd like to share about their own Beatles merch?
Favorite piece of Beatles merch? Anybody?
Well, I have a collection. I probably have 30, 35 LPs in different, conditions. And some of the ones I've collected over the years, some of them are mono, and those go section values. But I have a hard time finding how do you classify the quality and get a general feel for what the value is.
So the question is for our listeners, if they couldn't hear, is how do you classify the value of vinyl as a collection?
There is a grading scale. It's like everything's got the grading scale. And a lot of it, though, is just looking at it and going against the scale to think, is this an A or B or whatever that is. So, I mean, that's a tough one. I think if you've not done it a long time, is to figure out what you think that kind of scale is. But there is a grading scale out there just for the record. And the records themselves, if you say, well, I'm not going to collect merchandise, I'm going to collect records. Well, you find out really quick in Beatle world that it's still not that simple. Just the other day, I went on and I looked at the Hey Jude 45 record. Okay, that simple record comes out, whatever, and there it is right there. Well, if you start getting into minor details, and start collecting, well, Hey Jude, that was printed in Scranton, or Hey Jude, that was printed in Jacksonville, and all that. There's like 24 different label variations of just that 145 record. So that could be your niche for your Beatle collecting is just Hey Jude, 45 records in the U.S. I mean, that's how detailed you can get in this stuff.
I was going to say, how does vinyl rank in memorabilia or collecting? Like, do you consider that a form of memorabilia?
I would think in a certain way it sure would, because they've got that stuff everywhere like that.
I actually have a question about that, because I've been told that depending on what the vinyl is, okay, so like mono copies of certain records or things with certain packaging or things with certain inner sleeves or obviously filter covers, things like that, those can be valuable. But that people think that they have valuable Beatles vinyl, and there was so many millions of them.
Yeah.
The vast majority of it is not worth much at all.
You're probably correct.
Yeah, I was going to say, people think that, the butcher cover is much rarer than it is. And we have a joke, a friend of mine has a joke in LA, it's like, every time she goes to a garage sale, it's like, oh, we're going to find a butcher cover today? And I'll be damned she did. So that's a great question, Susan.
Well, my neighbor ran across the street not too long ago, and he's got the Meet the Beatles album. He goes, oh my God, this is the original. I remember when I bought it, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, have you looked online yet at the different variations and all that? And of course, he was sad because it wasn't what he thought. And because, some of those early albums were some of the most reproduced and all. Even in the late 60s, they started reproducing all that. So it's very hard, and it's an art in itself. Just like the records and the album covers and all that, it's an art in itself to know what you got or know what you don't have.
Sarah.
Well, I want to share my favorite memorabilia as a second generation fan.
Yes.
I have the John Lennon ones, the applause dolls. I have
Yes.
the Dude has one over there, like the Sullivan one. And I got the
Applause.
John Sergeant Pepper one with the little glasses. And of course, I have a memory of my mom and I buying. She bought her Ringo one, and I bought my John one at one of our first Beatle conventions, and it was sweet.
There's memories again. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but
Right.
that's always
It's special, yeah.
But as a second generation fan, those dolls were like a big, huge deal. And that was probably one of the most expensive things I had ever bought at that time in my life that I put my own money that I saved.
Yeah.
They were pricey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I'm a first generation. I saw him perform live in 1966, and I didn't keep my tickets. But I have probably 25 or more items. It's better to sell them as a group or to split them up.
25, you could probably split them up and little by little get rid of it. But I've seen some of these collections that they want to sell them as a group. They don't want to split these things up and have to mess with eBay for a year trying to get rid of one and another. So if it's a huge collection, it may go like that, but on yours, it could be just as interesting to put one of those out. You're going to do the research on it. You're going to see.
I'm not gonna be around.
Well, or somebody might, to see about that and to learn about it so that when you put it out, you're just that much more an informed consumer about that certain item.
I think Sarah, I want to go back to something you said, Sarah, too, about how the applause dolls were a big deal for our generation. I certainly remember that, Erica.
For sure,
Of
yeah.
course. So it's funny because every generation sort of has the holy grail of themselves. I remember people collecting those. I'm going to go back to my Monkees fandom for a second, because for Monkees fans in the late 90s, like having the TV box set, every TV show on VHS was like the thing that, like, if you had it, you were like the top fan. People worshipped you. Like, my best friend at the time had it, and I was like, oh my God. There's still a box set from the late 80s called the Listen to the Band box set, not even licensed, that was like the thing I always wanted, and I still want it. My friend was like the other day, oh, I think I have an extra copy, you can have it. And I was like, I don't have a CD player anymore, but I would love this box set anyway. So it's like, yeah, every
Same thing with the anthology box set too.
Oh, yeah,
I
the
mean,
anthology.
Those went away, so
VHS.
if you didn't get it and you wanted it and your friend had it, that friend was that friend you were going over to their house.
Totally.
You want to see it.
Yes.
I've got another comment that I realize there's price guides and you can do a lot of research to find out what your collection is worth. And I've over the years figured out that my collection could have probably put my kid through college. But technically, okay, and there's the rub. The price guide may tell you it's worth that much. If nobody's willing to pay you that money for that, it is not worth 1 red cent.
Exactly.
Somebody has to be willing to pay you that. So the price guide is just that, it's a guide. And so, getting back to, like I said before about the records, people think that all this valuable stuff, and technically yes, but technically no. So I think that there's a double-edged sword here with collecting memorabilia and thinking it's valuable, but I think the joy of collecting memorabilia really comes in what it does for you, what the joy is for you. It's not about its value particularly. It's not about its, cost or what it could be sold for, which could lead to your heirs or anything like that. It's about the joy that it gives you while you own it. And I think everybody in this room who owns Beatles memorabilia will say that things they own in various ways and various pieces give them satisfaction and joy and happiness, and that's what it's really about.
There's no doubt.
You had mentioned earlier about seeing products expiring that you want somewhere else and that whole and stuff. Have you ever thought you saw like a 15-year-old kid with a shirt on the Beatles and wondered, do they actually know any songs?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a great question. I think Erica and I can both relate to that because I certainly have gotten that before. I've gotten asked when I've worn Beatles t-shirts, automatically it's, oh, how do you know them? You're way too young. And it's something that I would never say or assume of a child younger than me. I think that, I've seen so many kids come through here today and I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. They have a John Lennon shirt, like they love John, I personally would never.
The thing about the things that are offered at Walmart or Target or places like that is not necessarily a cheapening, but it's a widening of inclusivity. So you can enter the Beatles fandom at any price level. You can enter it because you see cool art in a Target on a T-shirt for Sgt. Pepper. You're like, that's amazing. What's that? I want to wear that, and that can get you in. So I feel like as long as it's relatable back to the actual Beatles. I mean, there's some bad stuff out there that's not actually licensed, but once if you see it and you can buy it and you can see the connection to the original band, that's a way in. And this community is huge and it's only getting bigger. And I think the way that we do that is by just having these things around and having them on offer so that, if you're a parent and you buy it for your kid, okay, that's one way in. But if you're a kid and you see it and you want it, well, it's available to you too. You don't have to be searching eBay or, Crate and Barrel or anything to find that item that might get you in there.
So I wanted to share that for us, it gives us joy to know that our nephews and nieces and second generation have embraced a lot of the songs. And in Memphis, we're able to see some cover bands like the Mersey Beatles or somebody. And so it really brings them and us as a group together. So it's a wonderful family experience. But also our nephew asked me about purchasing a brick from Strawberry Fields. He came across it online. I would never have seen it. It wasn't available in a retail kind of thing. So we bought a brick. And I don't know if you have any insight into that.
Yeah, what about like buying stuff that's on site? How do you?
Yeah, I do have a piece of the cabinet.
Shipped over for me. I was like,
All right, we have people who need to know, Terry. How do you know if that's real?
Well, that's more of
DNA in the soil? You test it?
no, I don't. Well,
Probably not.
you still have to be a little bit careful, I think, with that kind of stuff. And my example of that right now in the last month, all I've seen on Facebook is the people selling the stage from Woodstock. All right. Well, if you see that, read the comments below. When the guy comes up there and says, "Buy the stage from Woodstock," the comments are wonderful about how nobody thinks it's real because the stage is blah blah blah. So go ahead and tell us.
Can I make I actually know that guy.
There you go.
Like Susan said, I worked on the Rhino Woodstock anniversary releases, and we tried to work with that guy, and that's actually the stage.
Okay.
He bought it. So the story. Sorry, this is a total digression. If you're curious about what happened on the stage after Woodstock, is they hauled it away, and then somebody took it upstate to the Finger Lakes to one of the resorts up there, and they made, I believe it was like a bocce court or something with it, or maybe it's like an indoor basketball court. Something, they repurposed the lumber. And so that resort was undergoing renovation, and this guy found out about it and was like, they didn't really realize what the stage was, but he did. And he said, if you don't want the lumber, well, I'll take it. I'll pay you this much for it. And he got the stage from Woodstock. And now he's making jewelry and all that kind of stuff from it, and it's legit.
Okay.
It's amazing.
The Strawberry Fields brick is extremely legitimate. It was done by Julia Baird when they decided to repurpose the Strawberry Field building, which was absolutely beautiful, and it's a shame they decided to tear it down. But Julia Baird chaired the whole thing. If you ordered it from her website. You got a letter of authenticity. You got the box that the brick came in. I can't even imagine how much Lena bought it for me last year. It cost to ship a brick from England.
We bought one for Cameron's a lot, and you buy it directly from Strawberry Fields. That's not. I mean, you can't buy a bootleg.
And you get the T-shirt that goes with it, and the coffee mug that goes with it too. So it is the licensed product.
Nice, love it.
Anybody else?
Yes,
Okay, so I bought items and I look in the price guide and I go, okay, I have the fake tie tack, I have the fake hairbrush. But I still like it.
Well,
Exactly.
my whole point about some of that stuff is it may be fake, but some of that fake stuff was still made 50 plus years ago.
Yes.
I mean, it may be fake, but it's old. It's still great stuff.
Right, so
And it's unique.
And it's unique,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
So the fakeness makes it unique at that point.
Right.
it's not like I set out to buy it. I bought other stuff and then this was, it was a lot on eBay or whatever. So this was thrown in. And so then I look, I'm like, oh, I wonder if this is the real stuff. Oh, darn it. Like for half a second, I'm like, well, boo. And I'm like, you know what? This looks pretty cool in my collection.
Yeah.
I don't really care that it's not the official thing.
And one of my perfect examples, if you look at, in my case over there at all the stuff, if you look at the Beatles hairspray over there, that is fake. But it was so cool looking at the way it sets into there, I just left it in there.
Yeah.
I could still give somebody joy 50 years ago that
Exactly.
they bought a Beatles hairspray
Well,
can.
that can is fake. They did really make Beatles hairspray, but it's just not that can.
Yeah. Again, I collect teen magazines from the 60s, and I call myself the Island of Misfit Teen Mags. A lot of my friends won't take them unless they're pristine. I like the ones, like I have a Beatles magazine where somebody drew Devil Horns Love the Day Part 5. And I want it. I'm like, give me your ripped up teen mags, like, because they have a lot of personality, kids that have written in them, so it's just, it's what it means to you, and those are valuable to me.
And it's not just about the Beatles, right? It's about the joy that item gives somebody else also, and you see it. And I would suggest going over to Sarah's table because all of these official fan club items, they show that same feeling of love, being so well loved for so long.
Well, with that,
I have a quote at the end
Ooh,
Yes.
June has a quote.
John Lennon said that you're not really dead until the last person who remembers your name says your name for the last time.
Oh.
So as long as we keep wearing the memorabilia, purchasing the memorabilia, and caring about the memorabilia, John lives on.
I love that.
That is a perfect way to end. Terry, thank you so much for being part of it.
And we are back for our last segment of the podcast. As always, our favorite Beatles obsession of the moment. Allison, what's yours?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I think a week or so ago now, I've done it before, but I haven't done it in a long time. I went to see A Hard Day's Night in theaters, which was so much fun. Of course, like I ran into, and no offense to any first gen fans listening, this is not you, I bet. But of course, I ran into a guy right away who is like, well, I saw this in theaters in 1964 and you're too young to blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, are you kidding me? Other than that, it was really fun. There were a lot of kids there with like their parents and grandparents. And I think they were seeing it for the first time. The weird thing about this screening was that one of the channels in the audio tracks was muted. So you were only getting like the vocals really loud in all the songs. You couldn't really hear the instrumentation. Hold, please. So that was really strange, but it was very cool. I had a great time. And if you haven't seen it, you've seen it on the big screen, right?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out, and I guess 2014 for the 50th anniversary when they put it out in 4K for the first time.
Oh, yes. I saw it then too.
Yeah, and it was at the Film Forum in New York. It was amazing.
I went to that. That was before we knew each other.
Oh my God, we might have been there the same day.
Oh my God.
That's so weird.
That would be crazy. It was so fake.
I know.
That's insane.
Did you love it as much as you do the first time?
Oh my God, of course. Every time I see it, I notice something different and I laugh at something different. And it's like I get like another reference or something about it, you know, and that's always really fun to like just see what changes from each viewing. I guess as I get older or whatever.
Well, I mean, the great thing about Hard Day's Night, I think, as opposed to many of the other Beatles films, is that a lot of people rate it a top 100 films of all time.
It's in the Criterion Collection.
Yeah, it was really a well done, well written film. I feel like the more you understand the world, the more you get when you watch this film. So there's always something to pick up there. The jokes are so fine tuned. They do such a perfect melding of who the Beatles were in real life, but with this heightened, comic persona that they were able to put on. It's just brilliant.
Actually, the friend I was with told me something that I didn't know, which was that the day they filmed Ringo's, like walking by the water scene with that kid with the camera and stuff, he was super hungover that day. I didn't know that. I'm not surprised, but
just a harbinger of the things to come in the 70s and the 80s.
My favorite Ringo is 70s, 80s Ringo, like the best Ringo
that Ringo doesn't remember.
Exactly. I love that Ringo. So, but no, it was great. 10 out of 10, would see again, will see again, we'll see many, many, many more times, but it's always fun to see it in the theater. I loved it. Anyway, Erica, what is yours?
In the spirit of Terry Crain and the holidays, I was re-listening to this and I was thinking, hey, what could I buy on eBay that's like super expensive? Like, what's the most expensive thing I could buy? And like, I kind of had like the pinball machine in mind, like something, or some autographed guitar or something like that.
Yeah, something you could give to your best good friend, Allison. I know.
Yes. Well, maybe you want this too. What I found was a painting. And the painting is called Jesus Tries to Cheer Up McCartney with Lamb Chop.
What?
It's selling on eBay for $257,000 US.
Wait, is it selling on eBay or is it listed on eBay for that much?
Listed. The artist has, in the listing, declined $150,000 offer.
Oh, wait. Okay. So somebody offered this person $150,000 and they declined it for this painting?
Apparently. The painting is very sad. Paul McCartney sitting in a chair with his dog. And there's a picture of John and Yoko and their wedding behind him. And I guess that means he's sad about Yoko. And then there's Jesus trying to cheer him up.
Holy fucking God.
And with lamb chop
Wait, so Lamb Chop the puppet.
You know, like Shari Lewis, yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
there's an angel with wings, and there's, I guess, Jesus sitting there next to him who looks a lot like Jack Black's Jesus, with a lamb chop puppet on, trying to console sad-faced Paul McCartney, who's moping in his white sports socks with these pictures of Yoko behind him. Oh, the picture of John and Yoko has an X through it. Yoko is X'd out.
That's not okay. What the hell?
There's a lot going on. So I looked into this a little bit because I was curious in who would make this. And the author's name is Kata Billups, and she is a painter who loves to apparently explore rock stars and Jesus in the same painting. Somebody must have actually offered $150,000 for this, but this is absurd.
I have questions. Okay, so first of all, the dog is like a German Shepherd. It's not even like Martha.
It's her dog. It's the artist's dog, apparently.
Oh my Christ. Okay. And then Paul is like 67 Paul.
Yep. And he's
And
super sad.
who's sitting beside him? There's like a guy.
That's Jesus. He's got the lamb chop on him.
Holy shit, lamb chop. That's Jesus looks like he skateboards in the 90s.
Sure
Like that
does.
doesn't look like the Jesus I've ever seen.
So this artist has a lot of different paintings, a lot of Rolling Stones paintings, a few other Beatles paintings, Dylan, Mick Jagger, Elvis, Pixie, and John Lennon high.
Personally, I think I'd buy a painting of Jesus and Keith Richards, but that's just me.
I kind of like the Beatles met Jesus by the pool. If you go to the artist's full catalog on eBay, you can find a bunch of different things, and one of them, for only $2,800, I must say, is the 1964-65-ish Beatles on a beach with a girl in a bikini and a beach ball and Jesus.
As the good Lord intended, apparently. I
Maybe.
mean, that's how I've seen it depicted in all my teen magazines.
Yeah.
Jesus is always there. These paintings are pretty detailed. I wonder what sets this one apart for, its price tag.
I don't know. Maybe it's the combination of Paul McCartney and Jesus and lamb chop.
And lamb chop. You got some star power going on there.
That's my obsession this week. This artist, Kata Billups, and her Jesus rock and roll paintings.
Holy shit. All right, great. Well, there's your last minute gift idea, folks. Discount everything that Terry just told you. You're now going to buy these amazing paintings.
Sell all your Remco dolls, take the money, buy it at this.
Yeah, Remco dolls do not even compare to these fabulous works of art.
Yeah. And on that note, I think we're going to get going.
I think that's a good wrap up there.
Thanks for listening to BC the Beatles. As always, subscribe on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening right now, and give us a rating and review so other Beatlemaniacs can find us.
Yes, and please remember to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have a lot of big things coming up, so you don't want to miss it. And we'll be posting photos of that painting and more
and the
from
Beatles
this episode.
store. I took a video tour of the Beatles store. I'll post that soon.
Hell yes. We're going to post all that from this episode and beyond. And remember, please, you can always email us at bcthebeatles@gmail.com. We love getting your emails. And we'll see you, in 2020, I guess.
We'll see you next year.
See you next year on BC
Bye.
Beatles. Bye.